Audio test. Alright, looks like everything's working. Alright, so for those of you who are going to be watching this on YouTube later, I got yet another snow day. So I actually did not have a full day with the students this entire week. So, you know, it's 9:30 on a Thursday night. Why not go for the third league of the day? The other two were pretty terrible, so we'll see if we can make this one better. We tried 2 earlier today with a mono white build that had 24 lands in it, and we bombed out at both of the leagues. Variance was not on our side for the most part, which was a little bit unfortunate, but that's okay. So I think I'm just going to run another one back with the red-white build that I've been working with. For this one, I'm just going to swap my Cunning Spark Mage for a 3rd Recruiter of the Guard in the sideboard. My numbers against Miracles and Check Pile weren't quite what I wanted them to be, so I'm going to go ahead and swap the Recruiter for that in order to just give me more opportunities to tutor for P and K in that matchup, which has been pretty sweet. One thing that's kind of nice about the red-white build is there aren't very many actual white-white cards in the entire deck. So in the main deck here, we have the Flicker Wisps and we have the Palace Jailer. And in the sideboard, we have just a couple of cards as well, the Relic Ward, the 2 Cataclysms, and 2 other creatures. Whereas with the mono-white build, if you look at the number of white-white cards we have, it's really, really high. And I got a little frustrated earlier in my league with just having a whole bunch of white-white cards in my hand that I couldn't actually cast. So I think I'm going to go ahead and run a league with the red-white build. I've been very happy with it. And I don't want to burn into my ticket stash too much experimenting with other builds if the red-white is just what's working for me right now. So kind of without further ado here, I'm just going to go ahead and get to it. So we're going to play the red-white taxes deck in a competitive league. Red-white taxes, that's fine. And here we go. That was speedy. Alright, we won the roll. We are playing against It's Cliche, who is probably playing a control deck of some nature. Last seen on a weird Dak Faden check pile-ish deck. I will go ahead and keep this hand. Like, it has a Thalia and a lot of mana disruption. And that can be a great way to sort of beat up on some of these control decks, is just kind of drop a Thalia and then attack their mana. Alright, so we are on the play, playing against It's Cliche. Drawing Magus is a pretty sweet draw. That kind of makes me want to revoke the Death Right now instead of playing the Thalia. Because that could potentially cut them off of any mana at all. But sort of for similar reasons, if I play the Thalia and my opponent spends the turn answering the Thalia, then the Magus probably does the same thing as well. So if the Thalia gets answered here, that's okay. You know, same thing would be true for the Revoker getting answered. But I'm going to play the Thalia first because it will constrain my opponent's ability to easily work with the mana. Alright, my opponent forces pitching a Baleful Strix. That's fine. And that would have happened if I played the Thalia or the Revoker there, in all likelihood. Alright, so my opponent fetches. And they play a Leavold. And I'm going to jam a Magus. And it resolved. Great. So all I have to do now is plan on beating this Leavold. The Deathrite Shaman is irrelevant. My opponent's not in a position where they can go and just kind of get it off the table. So something as simple as a Swords to Plowshares locks this game up. Unless my opponent also has red-based removal like Lightning Bolt. Oh, my opponent drew an island. They get to play some magic. Maybe not a lot of magic, but some magic. Sort of awkwardly, this does mean that my opponent has the opportunity to like flash in a Snapcaster Mage to block these things. But we're not playing Magus of the Moon to, you know, not jam it. If my opponent isn't going to block with their Deathrite Shaman, they should probably just attack with it. But hey, that's just me. Alright, P&K is pretty insane. I think I actually want to cast that pre-combat on the off chance that my Magus of the Moon gets blocked by a Snapcaster Mage that comes in. I think. Yeah. Yeah, if my opponent has an unsummon, they can unsummon some stuff. Alright, my opponent now accepts the trigger. My opponent now probably has to hold this Leovold back because I have them dead in 2 turns if they attack with it. But my opponent disagrees. And they're just going to keep rumbling with Leovold, so I'll let them. I mean, my opponent has cards they can. Oh, man. That's sweet. Alright, the opponent has scooped it up. What a rude 3-drop. What a rude 3-drop indeed. Alright, so game 1. Win with Bacchus. Sometimes it is just that easy. Alright, so we're playing against Check Pile, a 4-color control deck, so we're going to bring in our anti-control package, which includes another Recruiter of the Guard and another P and K. Those cards are very good endgame inevitability. Mirran Crusader is kind of a pain to deal with. And Cataclysm can be a game-ending card when they get ahead with Planeswalkers. We are going to start by boarding out all of our Swords to Plowshares. They're not particularly good in this matchup. There's not really any card that we really want to answer. I'm of the opinion that Palace Jailer is a little bit risky in this matchup. It can be very good at the right times, but at the wrong times, like your opponent casts a Snapcaster Mage, removes a guy, and you die. Ooh, and I almost forgot about my Rest in Pieces as well. Those are very, very good. So I need to trim 3 more cards here. Revoker's a little bit unreliable in this matchup as a hate card. Like, it can turn off Deathrite Shaman or a Planeswalker, but it's not necessarily going to get there on its own. So I'm fine with trimming those, and then I need to trim 1 more card. I guess it can be a Flicker Wisp. What are the opponent's traps I expect? Culligan's Command is the big trap. Like, that's the card that's really, really scary. When my opponent gets, like, 2 of my creatures or a creature and an equipment card at the same time, it can be pretty rough. This hand is fine. Like, it has an Aether Vial and a Mother of Runes. That's a great start. It doesn't have another action card beyond that for sort of the early to mid-game, but Cataclysm is a very good end-game card to have in my hand. So I won't be shipping this one back, especially on the draw. So we're hoping to draw, like, Thalia would be the best draw in the deck, so that I can curve Thalia into Wingmare. Rest in Peace would be really good. Second Aether Vial is not great. Opponent is F6'd, so I know they don't have a counterspell. That's good information to have. Current plan for the next turn is to cast a second Aether Vial, and then Vial in a Mom. Let me get like Hymn to Turok here, maybe. Ancient Grudge. Ancient Grudge is slightly annoying. I'm gonna go ahead and play into it. Because my opponent currently doesn't have green mana and there's no lands in the graveyard. Or if they do, like, fetch and then Ancient Grudge is Ether Vial. I don't actually care about that since I have this Jitte. Alright, decay on the mom. That's fine. There should be a follow-up play as well here. A second Deathrite Shaman. Rest in Peace again would be a great, great draw. We've got 3 of them. Second Caracas. Not a great draw. Playing the Wingmare is kind of awkward here because it means that I can't go like Jitte and equip on the next turn, assuming the Wingmare lives. Sort of the good news is that these Deathrites have limited functionality right now. There's not a lot of gas in the graveyard. Like, including the Brainstorm, there's 3 instants and sorceries in the graveyard in total and 1 creature. So these Deathrites aren't going to do a great job of clocking me. They're gonna run out of gas. I'm just worried about my opponent doing something like playing a Planeswalker. Assuming the Wingmare lives, I'll get to cast Jitte on my turn, attack for 2, and then try to get Jitte to take over the game. The Deathrites can't actually produce mana right now, which is great for me. My opponent has a 3rd. Again, Rest in Peace would be an absolutely baller draw. And you notice my opponent is attacking in with these Deathrites. Each one of these individual Deathrites means very little right now. I don't really expect this this Wingmare to connect with the Jitte. You know, one way or another, I expect some of my permanents are going down the drain. Yep, there's a Lightning Bolt. So I should see 2 Deathrite attacks and 1 being held back for a Deathrite drain. And now I'm going to have to ask myself whether or not I want to Cataclysm this turn if I don't draw something relevant. But I did draw something relevant. I would prefer not to Cataclysm until I can get a little more value out of it. I think I just want to recruit her for something annoying. So I can Recruiter for Magus of the Moon to shut off all of my opponent's lands, which I kind of like. Or, oop, I just shut off my monitor. That's annoying. I can shut off Magus of the Moon to just stop all of my opponent's lands, and there's no lands in graveyard. So that seems pretty sweet. Or I can tutor for a Mirran Crusader to just take over the game with equipment. Since there are no lands in graveyard, getting the Magus is pretty disgusting. But if my opponent gets a fetch land, or I cast his Cataclysm, I'm going to funnel lands into the graveyard. So getting Mirran Crusader might just be better. Like, Mirran Crusader plus this Jitte that's on board should take over the game. But Magus of the Moon should do an equally good job of just closing things out as well. If I telegraph that this Magus is coming, my opponent can probably do something about it. So I think I just want to get the Mirran Crusader. Like, if my opponent drains me for 6 and puts me to 10, like, I might just be in danger of just dying. So I think I'd rather Mirran Crusader and try to get that equipped with the Jitte. Alright, so my opponent attacks him with 2 different creatures. That's fine. Stoneforge is a solid draw. I'm just going to cast the Mirran Crusader. I'm afraid of just going for an equip and getting absolutely wrecked by a Culligan's Command. Like, a Culligan's Command will still be very bad. Ooh, Snapcaster Lightning Bolt. Annoying. On my turn, I plan on playing a Stoneforge Mystic. I can play both a Stoneforge Mystic and equip this creature with Jitte. If I do that, my opponent blocks with Deathrite, and I can shrink a Deathrite and a Snapcaster Mage, so I actually don't want to block here. But it's a little awkward if my opponent has a removal spell. Yeah, no block. I would like to draw a land. So that way I don't have to use my Lotus Petal Caracas here. Needed to be more specific. We'll see if this actually works. My guess is no. Like, my opponent has 3 cards in hand. I'll discard a Caracas here. And my opponent gets the Recruiter for free. Annoying, but not the end of the world. I am in real danger of just getting bled out by Deathrite Shamans here. I'm hoping my opponent plays some things rather than just drain me for 6, drain me for 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instants and sorceries in the graveyard. So they can't quite do the whole double drain me thing yet, but as soon as one more spell gets cast, that does it. Yep. So I should just be dead on board here, more or less. Assuming my opponent doesn't misplay. So I can put in a Batterskull here, but my opponent just gets to drain me. I can Cataclysm here, but my opponent keeps land, Deathrite Shaman, and I die. So I just concede this one. Alright. Game 1 win. Game 2 on the draw loss. Lost 3 Deathrites. Move on to game 3, where I'll be on the play. Still like everything we did with sideboarding, so we'll keep this and run it back. This is a risky hand. But it is a risky hand that has all the right cards for the matchup. So I'm going to keep it. We have 23 lands, so just under half of our draws are a land for us to curve out. And my opponent is unlikely to answer this Aether Vial until turn 3. If I draw the land, I will play the Rest in Peace before I play the Thalia, because I can put the Thalia in off of the Vial. Whereas if I put the Thalia in first and I don't draw a third land, I can't actually do anything with the Rest in Peace. Alright. Not the draw we want at this stage of the game. That's okay. Ancient Grudge on a Vial is annoying. Alright. Put that on human. And I kind of just want to invalidate their graveyard from very early on. It's not the most aggressive play, but I don't want this card to get like Hymn to Turok or equivalented. Sure, you can have Leovold. I don't particularly care about that card right now. I'm going to put a damper on my opponent's mana with Thalia, and then I'll follow up with my pair of Stoneforge Mystics. I expect at least one of them to just kind of die. Maybe both. But it's also possible that my opponent just points some removal at Thalia. So my opponent fetched and tried to play something, but was not unable to play whatever that thing was. Or maybe they have opted to wait. I have a feeling I'll find out one way or another in just a second. Of note with this build, you don't just like randomly fetch. You save your fetches for as long as possible to see whether or not you get a basic land with them. And the answer is probably yes, since I have 2 sources for Pia and K in my hand already. And we're going to get the sword because it gives protection from both Baleful Strix and Leovold. Fatal Push the Stoneforge. You bet. I have another one next turn. And we're very much getting into the range where alright, Hymn to Turok me. Hitting the Stoneforge is rough. I really wanted them to take my extra Thalia there, because it's not doing me any good. I'm going to go ahead and fetch to thin here. Since I have both of my red sources, I'm just going to get a Plains in case I draw a Magus. This is not actually the end of the world, because now I get to Cataclysm away their lands and Liliana while keeping this Caracas to then bounce the Leovold. So that's actually not bad. What's awkward is that they're going to be able to keep both the Leovold and the Baleful Strix. Which means I'll take 4, then I'll bounce the Leovold. And hopefully draw another land so I can deploy this Thalia. Alternatively, I can bounce the Leovold now, then Cataclysm. I won't have another land as a follow-up, but my clock will be much, much more reasonable. And that's... like, it seems awkward to throw away an extra land into this Cataclysm. That might be what I need to do to just, like, stay alive. The difference between being on a... so they'll attack me for a 4-turn clock from the Baleful Strix versus an 8-turn clock from the Baleful Strix is pretty huge. Again, it's very awkward. I can also just play Thalia, equip Thalia, hold up Caracas, and then Cataclysm on the following turn. I discard the Thalia if I do it. If I wait a turn and my opponent doesn't do something like him to Turok me, like the Thalia line probably wins me the game. I kind of like being a little bit more conservative. It's really bad to like a Culligan's Command though, because my opponent like Culligan's Command blows up my sword, makes me discard a card, and then pluses with Liliana. I'm in really, really bad shape. But I think I'm going to try to get a little bit more ahead on board. Play the Thalia and equip, and then Cata the next turn after bouncing. Yeah, that's what I ended up on as well. Oh no, I'm going to discard the Cataclysm to the Lily. What was I thinking? That's why I didn't do this. Yeah, so I didn't take the line that I wasn't planning on taking the line that I took, because if I didn't play the extra land this turn, then like I didn't have the extra card in my hand. Alright, so my opponent is representing strength by attacking in with this Leovold. I'll block. Show me what you got, opponent. Nothing is the answer. I think my opponent just expected that I was going to bounce it with the Caracas. Alright, that is a solid draw. And I'm fine with just casting this. So my life total is low enough that I am worried about it, and I just want to get this source of life gain in play. I don't think my opponent has a Culligan's command, or they would have like blown me out with it the previous turn. And even if they do, now they have 2 pieces of equipment they need to worry about. Alright, that's a Leovold. So I'm just going to bounce the Leovold at their end step. No matter what, with the Sword of Fire and Ice, I'm going to be giving them a card. So I'd rather bounce the Leovold and be able to get in for an additional point of damage, and also draw my card off of Sword of Fire and Ice. This does give them an opportunity to like bolt my Thalia or something like that, but then I still have the Stoneforge body as well. Alright, it does appear like my opponent does have a removal spell. Oh, now they have a Brainstorm. This seems like a poor time to brainstorm. Like, this won't actually allow them to cast any 1-mana spell they have because of the Thalia, and it just kind of lets me know that things are 100% safe. And Wingmare is a pretty great draw as well. See, so I can Wingmare and port once, or Wingmare and equip. Phil, so much content, OMG. Well, I got another snow day tomorrow, 2 power. I don't really know how I got another snow day, but it happened. So it's not like I'm like not gonna play Magic Online all night if I don't have to work. Okay, Rest in Peace is a solid draw. My opponent is fetching for some unknown reason. Praise be to Lord Snow. I guess this is why I'm playing snow-covered lands in my deck. So it was my plan to play Wingmare. And I think it still is. Like, something like a Toxic Deluge isn't actually an out for my opponent. Because they can't pay enough life to actually sweep my board. So with Wingmare and Thalia and 2 pieces of equipment, there's just too much for them to answer. Like, the only way they can kill me is if they just take 6 damage directly to my face. Yeah, we've had an unusual amount here in Virginia in the past week. Like, I got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, which is more or less unprecedented. Like, it's the sort of thing that happens, but 3 snow days in a row is really rare. But we just don't have, like, the plows and infrastructure that we need to, like, get through any snow, really. My opponent is also in danger of just timing out if they don't die. They're sub 5 minutes at this point. And I won game 1. Oh man. Was 09 when you got like that ridiculous blizzard that like produced multiple feet of snow and literally trapped people in their houses? Because that was a hoot. No, that must have been later than that, because I think I was in grad school when that happened. Or fresh out of grad school. Well, my opponent is casting something. They cast a Baleful Strix, trying to get a redraw. That year, there were literal walls of snow between the car and sidewalk in Baltimore, which is crazy. Ooh. Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Illinois, so, like, that sort of thing, like, I was used to that, you know? So my opponent should be on literal 0 outs. I can't think of anything that makes them live. I'm gonna go ahead and yeah, okay. They concede. They knew. They knew. All right, game 3, we win. So game 3, we won with equipment, although like the Thalia attacks in the Rest in Peace certainly helped too. The Southwest is not prepared for that sort of thing. Or Southeast, yes. Absolutely. Virginia is not prepared for that amount of snow. So for those of you who weren't here when I started this stream, I'm playing a different deck than earlier. I'm playing Red-White Taxes right now, the same as I've been playing for the past, 2 months. I made one substitution. I had a Cunning Spark Mage that, like, literally won me none of the 111 games that I played. Or, excuse me, 111 matches that I played. So I replaced it with a Recruiter of the Guard. Ooh, network error. Am I still streaming? Looks like I'm still streaming. Chad, if you would just kind of respond and make sure that everything is okay, that would make me feel better. I lost sight of my stream on my second monitor for a minute there. Okay, yes, everything's good. Thank you. Okay, so the Cunning Spark Mage that I was playing was a great tutor target, but it in practice never actually did anything. Like in the 111 matches that I played, that ends up being well over 200 games, closer to 300. It did not win me a single game, at least not that I attributed it to. So it got the cut for another recruiter to bring in for matchups like Check Pile, because finding extra copies of things like P and K and Magus and Mirren Crusader is just absolutely great. All right, let's hop back in. How do you feel about the Judge's Familiar build? I think the Judge's Familiar build is fine. You give up a better late game for a better early game. And if that's a strategy that you're okay with and a trade that you're willing to make, the Judge's Familiar build is very respectable. But more on that on a different day. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I've got something in the pipes concerning Judge's Familiar. It may be a week or two before that gets pushed out, but there's Judge's Familiar content coming. All right, we are playing against Coffee House Ryan, and we are on the draw. Coffee House Ryan. Let's see if I have any data on that person. They play Grixis Shadow in Modern. That's all I know. So we will be keeping any sort of reasonable hand. He always sounded useful, but was always bad. Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. Like, Are you supposed to bring it in against something like Grixis Delver, where it hits unflipped Delvers and Pyromancers, but not like a flipped Delver or a Deathrite Shaman or a Gurmag Angler or a True Name Nemesis? Like, it's a fine card for the mirror. It's a fine card for some random matchups like Elves and Infect. But I don't really know that it's good enough in a vacuum to see play in the deck. Or, excuse me, it's not. It's a good enough card. I don't know if I get enough value out of the card to justify its slots. We're going to keep this hand against an unknown opponent. Like, we have 2 Aether Vials, 2 Swords to Plowshares, and a Revoker. My opponent also tanked for a long time on their hand, so I'm sort of under the impression that my opponent's hand is going to be weak. Or risky. Ooh, it's one of those Gitaxian Probe hands. Maybe my opponent is, like, missing lands or something like that. And they're, like, thinking about whether or not they wanted to mulligan or just try to Gitaxian Probe into one. Cabal Therapy would be pretty devastating here. Alright, it's just a Deathrite Shaman. That's fine. Yeah. I don't want to talk about how good that Cabal Therapy would be. And here I'm just going to Swords to Plowshares the Deathrite Shaman. In my earlier days of playing this deck, I tended to err towards playing Aether Vial on the first turn no matter what, just because it's so good. But I'm so afraid of my opponent getting ahead on mana with Deathrite Shaman these days. Like, it just leads to bad things, one way or another, no matter which deck my opponent is playing. So, like, I'd much rather, like, double Aether Vial or Aether Vial and Swords to Plowshares on turn 2, and, like, have my Vials be a turn behind. See if we get stifled here. Play the Swords to Plowshares out first. I want to play this one around Daze. Spell Pierce, sure. And now we get to stick an Aether Vial. Yeah, so I don't fault anyone for playing an Aether Vial on turn 1, but my opponent tanked for a long time, like literally like a minute to a minute and a half off their keep, and then the first thing they did was Gitaxian Probe, so I think they were kind of landlight. And because of that, I don't want to give them the opportunity to get ahead on mana. Like, I don't want to let them dig out of their situation if they're landlight. Like, can you imagine how bad my situation would be if my opponent, like, had a second flip Delver right now because I gave them 1 extra mana? Like, I'd be so dead. Like, I'm already in really bad shape. Don't really need to draw more Aether Vials now, but thanks, deck. Yep. We're probably just going to get Delvered this game. Like, despite having 2 removal spells, it's probably just not going to be enough with this hand. So, like, I'm going to put this Mom in. The Mom is immediately going to get Lightning Bolted. And then I'm dead in 2 turns to these idiots. The Flare Wisp off the Vial is going to be really, really good. Oh, man. The stone's on my opponent. They are just saying nothing is going to go wrong, and they are just trying to kill me on the next turn. They are probably going to get super punished for that. Like, unless they have a counterspell in addition to everything else they have. And I'm going to snap swords in response to that, while they don't have the opportunity to be digging for a counterspell. Yep, opponent is getting super, super punished for not killing this bomb. Unless I see this bolt just fly at my face here. Nope, okay. Don't have the second bolt. I want this to not be like a Gurmag Angler or something stupid like that. Feels like a Gurmag Angler. It's a Gurmag Angler. So yes, I'll take this one up. Yes, I'll take this one up. And this one I'll leave at 1 for this turn. Solid is a solid draw. I'm going to go ahead and put that in now. It'll prevent my opponent from just like lightning bolting me randomly. No attacks. Move to my end step. And I think just blink out the Gurmag Angler now to play around a Stifle. I guess if I'm going to play around a Stifle, I should just do it in the upkeep to not give them another opportunity to draw one. So my plan is blink Gurmag Angler, trade with Delver, not use Mom's protection ability. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in upkeep. Flicker Delver and double block with Revoker and Wisp. Yeah. So I'm going to give my opponent a chance to draw the like one more card to draw a Stifle. I want to see what they do. All right. So here's the obligatory. I put in Flicker Wisp. And so now I'll get rid of the Gurmag Angler for a turn. I'll block the Delver. And since I know my opponent has this Lightning Bolt, I'm not going to like Mom target Flicker Wisp and give them an opportunity to get my only flyer off the board. Like the Mom can hold back Gurmag Angler in various ways for a little while, but I need this Delver to die because I don't have another flyer. Oh, buddy, a third league for the day on a roll? Yeah, we're on a roll because I got my third snow day in a roll. I don't know how I got 3 snow days in a row, but feels pretty good. So we'll now tick all of these up. So we have a Violon 2, a Violon 3, a Violon 4. So all of our creatures that we draw come off as uncounterable. Caracas is an acceptable draw, because now we can start doing like Thalia Blink things to block the Gurmag Angler. Oh, Lightning Bolt me. That's worrying. That might mean they have another bolt. I can't just beat another bolt to my face. Boo. Alright, so we're playing against Grixis Delver. We're on the draw, and we lost. So why did we lose? Like, what really did it? What was sort of the defining moment? It was really the fact that my opponent could play through double Swords to Plowshares. So I'll be on the play for the next one. Alright, so we're playing against Grixis Delver. We'll board in some Path to Exiles. We'll board in some Rest in Peace. We'll board in a Mirran Crusader, and that's probably it. We'll board out these Revokers. They're not particularly good. We'll board out the Recruiters. They're a little slow. I tend to board out Jailer here. It's really good against like Delvers and Gurmags and such, but it's really bad against Young Pyromancer and True Name Nemesis. And then I need to make one more cut. Probably the PNK. PNK is really slow. It can be good, but it's not necessarily what we want. So the way I play this matchup is sort of playing a ton of removal or effective removal. Like all of this stuff over here is effectively removal spells against their deck. And so if I take all of their threats off the table, I can win with anything. So like any creature plus a piece of equipment can win the game. It was suggested to me that instead I should actually sideboard out Magus of the Moon in this matchup and leave in Palace Jailer and one Recruiter. I don't know how I feel about that, because Magus of the Moon can just be free wins. So the idea is that you essentially just play the mono-white game plan against them. I'll try that. I don't know if it's right, but it was advice I got from Mark Koenig. And I trust his opinion. He says that he boards out Magus of the Moon against the various Lightning Bolt decks of the format. Yep, this hand's great. I think Magus is great in this matchup. But I respect him enough that I, want to try the way that he sideboards for this matchup. I'm gonna wasteland my opponent. Yeah, I think Magus is great in this matchup. Well, but I'll try a few games without it and see if I like this Jailer. I really like drawing Rest in Peace here. My opponent hasn't gotten any graveyard value yet, and this shuts off future Gurmag Anglers and Deathrite Shamans, as well as Flashback Cabal Therapy. And we have 2 plays on the mana that we have available right now, and 2 more really good ones with 1 more land. Again, I'm not going to be super mana efficient here. I'm just going to keep them from making any tokens, keep them from doing things that matter, and eventually grind out this game with my higher quality cards. Alright, True Name Nemesis is annoying, especially if we whiff on a land. So, I can get this Aether Vial in play at the cost of tempo. My opponent has 4 cards. I do not have Pontiff. They've used 1 creature-based removal spell. If I play the Stoneforge and just do something like fetch up a Batterskull to try to stabilize the board, I can't actually deploy the Batterskull if my opponent just wastelands me without drawing another land. So I kind of want to play the Vial, let my opponent wasteland me, and then if I draw a land, I Stoneforge after that. It's not a great spot. Like, I know we're at 19 life, and it's just 3 damage a turn, but I have literal no outs to that card, so it's on the board forever. It does not go away. I'm on a 7-turn clock from that alone. But 7 turns is long enough that this Ether Vial matters. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this. Doesn't feel good. Like, this Vial might be too slow, I agree. But, like, there are situations where my opponent doesn't wasteland me. There are situations where I miss lands and I need this Vial to stay in the game. Like, if I play the Vial and I miss on a land, but a couple turns down the line, I get a land, then, like, this is a more live play, in all likelihood. Yeah, my opponent should be at like 95% to just wasteland me. Like, there are some weird circumstances where they don't. Like, if they miss on land and they have a young Pyromancer and they want to, like, get that into play so that they can start producing tokens and increase the clock exponentially. Because if they do something like young Pyromancering a Taxian Probe, this turn the True Name hits me to 16, and then they have 6 power, so it becomes a 3-turn clock rather than a 7-turn clock. Or they can, like, deploy another True Name Nemesis, which would be better than wastelanding me. Yep. So my opponent is going to flip this Delver this turn because they brain. Oh, and Ancient Grudge. We're dead. We're dead. So, like, now the Batterskull's not even fast enough, right? It's just a 10. If we draw land, Stoneforge, yep. Dead. I'm not going to concede, because if I draw Swords to Plowshares and I Swords the Delver, and I draw land the following turn, that's... So this should name Stoneforge Mystic so that Batterskull isn't an out anymore. Jette's too slow. I don't know why they named that. Alright, that's fine. We'll concede here. Alright, we got Delvered. We really lost to that Wasteland. The True Name Nemesis was really good, too. This hand looks great. Let's see if we have any data on my opponent. MU1318. No data on my opponent. I will be keeping this hand. We're on the play. It's MU1318. So this is pretty disgusting, because we get to go, like, turn 1 Mom off Cavern, turn 2 Thalia off Cavern Waste, turn 3 Magus. Against most decks in Legacy, that should be a very devastating curve. Although if I draw a second fetch land, I will fetch next turn. Did I mention all those cards were going to be uncounterable because of Cavern of Souls? I don't think I mentioned that. Alright, so my opponent was F6'd, so probably no counter magic. Oh no, is it the mirror? This is not a great hand for the mirror, especially if they're on mono white. It might not be the mirror. It could be something like Miracle still. I'm going to play like it's the mirror, though, and deploy 2 moms, since my opponent F6 my first turn and F6 to this one as well. Alright, so my opponent is on the Judge's Familiar build. What I draw is going to influence whether or not I moon them or play Thalia and wasteland them. Aether Vial, you say? So if my opponent is on the Judge's Familiar build, they're probably mono white, meaning they're playing way, way more planes than I am. If I waste my opponent this turn and play Thalia, and they don't have another land, I get really, really far ahead. If I Magus them, then they can still do things like cast Stoneforge Mystics, but maybe I stop them from doing something like casting a Mirror Crusader. The Magus is sort of a low impact card, unless I cut my opponent off of white-white. But if I wasteland and then follow it up with Thalia, that's probably better. I can also wasteland and follow up with Aether Vial. Either way, I've pretty much locked myself into wastelanding this turn. I'm pretty convinced that is right. And I'm not going to get cute and try to push 1 extra point of damage with Mother of Runes. I don't think I need to do that right now. Alright, so playing Magus of the Moon would not have cut my opponent off of any mana, so I like my line. You bet, Birdman. Get in there. Spirit of Labyrinth. I literally do not care about that card. And I'm going to Ether Vial this turn rather than cast Revoker. I really want to have a good Revoker target, and Judge's Familiar is not a good Revoker's target. And my opponent is not far enough ahead in the mana race where they can go and do something like cast a Jitte in equipment or anything like that. This is why I don't play Spirit of the Labyrinth. It's so poor in combat. Like, my opponent can't attack with it into 1/1s. Like, granted they're 1/1s with abilities, but if it was like a literal 1/1 that did anything, it wouldn't be good enough. Alright, my opponent has deployed a decent board now. Alright, so I get a Stoneforge Mystic, so I have the possibility of going and winning the equipment war here. That's great. I have 2 moms to their 1, which is also great. This is the only safe attack my opponent can make. Everything else is risky. They will probably just flicker with my vial to reset it for marginal value. Yep. I am 99% to fetch a basic plains with this Flooded Strand, so I'm just going to do so now. If my opponent is playing something stupid like Haven Mind Sensor, I don't want to get got. I just played red in Texas, man. It's so different than mono white. Seems more aggressive. Which one seems more aggressive? Oh, seems more aggressive than Prison. I think the red-white deck is more of a control deck than mono-white. But I'll talk about that in between games. It's sort of a lengthy discussion. All right. Land is an acceptable draw. So before I use any of my mana to equip, or no, let's see. So if I put Jitte here, my opponent has double swords, and I go equip and they swords, and I go this and they swords, then they get the Thalia off the table. Oh no, they have, there's 2 Thalias in play, so I don't need to actually worry about that. Yeah, they can't double swords. I figured that out too. Like these first 2 Jitte counters are just going to tear this game wide open. Like I'll get rid of their mom, and then I will get rid of probably their Flicker Wisp. And I'm likely to do both of those things just right now. I guess I can hold the Jitte counters. Like, there's not really anything that punishes me for waiting for a little bit. Kind of curious to see what my opponent does with their mana. I don't want to walk into something stupid like Restoration Angel. Like, I know that's not something I should play around, but my opponent just passed with 4 mana in the face of Jitte, didn't port me. Like, there's got to be something going on over there. You want to swords targeting my mom. Well, mom will protect herself. Here's the aggro play. I'll go ahead and kill their mom now. They'll protect something, probably the Spirit of the Labyrinth to push damage. Alright, they want to target their Thalia with that. I'm okay with this scenario. You bet. I think I'm okay with taking 6. Like I can get this Flicker Rust off the table right now, but if my opponent just goes and plays something like a Mirren Crusader, no, that doesn't actually matter. Yeah, I'll protect my life total. I feel like I've got this one on lockdown, unless my opponent just aggroes me out. If my opponent just, like, taps out for a piece of equipment, I just get to revoke it, which is sweet. Palace Jailer. Alright, that's slightly annoying, but I don't actually care that much about that. Like, I'm going to get the crown right back. Alright, you want to exile my Thalia? You can exile my Thalia. What do I care about my opponent having? Maybe Sword of Fire and Ice? I'm the Monarch. I get my Thalia back. I'll be able to flash in this Magus of the Moon. I have 2 Jitte counters. I'm drawing extra cards. This one's pretty well over. I want to equip this to my Thalia. And I don't want to get Caracased. So at my end step, unless I draw a Flicker Wisp, I'm just going to put the Magus in. Alright, the opponent scoops it in. Alright, so we're playing against DNT, and we win. So game 1, win with Jitte. Despite having a really awkward draw for the mirror, we did get there. Alright, so what do we want? We want removal and inevitability. We'll board in P and K, Path to Exile, Leonin Relic Warder, Mirren Crusader, and maybe this Recruiter too, depending on how many, depending on how many slots we have. So what don't we want? This Rest in Peace is not good. These Magus of the Moons are not good. And these Thalias are super awkward. No one had a Caracas that game. Anyone who drew a Caracas that game would have immediately taken that game over. Absolutely no question about that. Palace Jailer is a bit of an awkward card in this matchup. Like you just saw, it can be great or it can lose you the game. If I had another card to board in, I would probably board out this Palace Jailer, but I don't. I got the Spark Mage. Alright, my opponent's taking their time with their sideboarding here. Nothing wrong with that. If I would have known my opponent was going to take so long, I would have ran to the bathroom now. But that can wait. So this is a hand that has no early interaction at all. There's no vial. There's no way for me to like deal with an opposing creature that matters. Like, this hand looks reasonable because it has a bunch of lands and spells, but it doesn't actually do anything. So I'm going to mulligan this one. This is a much better hand. I'll bottom that. It's a hand that still needs some help. But, like, in your opening hand for the mirror, you want, like, some combination of Aether Vial, Stoneforge Mystic, and Mother of Runes. And I have 2 moms. This is awkward if my opponent leads on an Aether Vial. Yep. So they may be able to press a mana advantage pretty hard. I'm actually going to lead on a Caracas, because now that I drew the second, I would like to get the first one wastelanded. Alright, so there's that wastelanded I wanted to bait. That's good. So this Pithing Needle will name Mother of Runes, which really sucks for us since we have 2. And this one is probably slipping away pretty quickly. Like, it's possible my opponent doesn't have a lot of gas. Alright, get in there, Mom. Note that we are attacking this Mom into a potential Judge's Familiar, but since it is now just a 1/1 with no text, that's fine. I only have 1 card that can get that Pithing Needle off the table. So these Moms are probably locked down for most of the game. If I draw a Leon and Relic Warder, I might, like, by that time I will probably need to go after cards other than Pithing Needle. We'll see. I'm really worried about my opponent just, like, deploying a Stoneforge Mystic. Getting Jitte, casting Jitte, and me getting so far behind that I can't possibly win. There's the Jitte. There's casting the Jitte. The third Caracas is a really bad draw. I am effectively dead. I'll play out for a few turns, but I don't expect to win from here. Like, me winning from here would require my opponent not to have another land or relevant cards to put in off Ether Vial. Like, I'll port them to try to keep them off of mana, but it's probably not working. Did you see the 5-0 list with Direfleet Daredevil? Yeah, Ayati was playing that. I am of the opinion that that card is not good enough for consistent power. Like, there will be some really cool spots where, like, it does some neat things, but generally speaking, it's gonna be really random whether or not it's good. And it's not actually a 2-drop. Like, I know it has 2 in the corner, but that's a card you need to, like, at least play on turn 3 or turn 4 if you have a Thalia. I kind of want to trade for this body, as terrible as that is, because these mobs are doing me literally nothing. And I just kind of need to pray that my opponent has nothing. If I trade for this Stoneforge and they have a Flicker Wisp, then they can't Flicker Wisp the Stoneforge to, like, go and get a Sword of War and Peace too. It does not feel good. But I'm gonna trade these, I think. Like, I'm kind of just playing to, like, my opponent has nothing. Because my board state is just so bad. Alright. So, like, this Wingmare will eat it to this Jitte counter, and then if my opponent doesn't have a 3-drop creature, maybe. So Arc Lightning, if you're interested in the Direfleet Daredevil list, you should, like, read the past, like, 2 pages of the D&T thread on the source. There was some amount of discussion on that. Recruiter's pretty gross. Like, it doesn't even matter what my opponent gets. Like, a Flicker Wisp alone is pretty devastating, for example. But if they have something cute like a Pontiff. Thalia Heretic Cathar. I have a Caracas. That seems like a terrible choice. Seems like a terrible, terrible choice. Like, unless my opponent has a Wasteland in their hand too, and their plan is, like, Wasteland me, Violin Thalia, equip to Recruiter, and get me. But otherwise, like, they just tutored up a card that does nothing. Alright, so this is where my opponent puts in Thalia Heretic Cathar. Yeah. And I bounce it and make you look silly? Yeah, like, now I know my opponent is bad, so that's really important information. And I know that I should fetch right now. And I'll fetch a Plateau. I'm fine with throwing a Mom into this board. It's dead anyway. And I mean that in every capacity of the word. So, I'm playing out for information and for clock. I kind of ran behind on time because I was chatting to the stream. So I want to let my opponent waste some time trying to kill me. Alright, well, they had the Thalia Heretic Cathar, and then they didn't play it again because they realized they were bad, but if they would have played it again, then I wouldn't get to cast this Batterskull right now. So I guess that's neat. That's fine. Now you can put in your Thalia Heretic Cathar and make this Germander tap, but I couldn't have cast it in the first place if you just, like, played it earlier. This is why we don't play Thalia Heretic Cathar, folks. How many counters are on this Jitte? 3 counters, so it'll go up to 5 counters, so my opponent can just kill the Germ. That's fine. I'm not, like, actually being clocked very much at all, because I'm going to get to bounce this Thalia again. And my opponent will kill the Germ when I attack in with it, or get rid of it in some capacity. So we're not actually just dead. I mean, we're in really bad shape. But, like, I wouldn't be surprised if I somehow eked out a win this game if I drew properly. Sure. My opponent is one by one using counters to get rid of my Germ token. That's okay. Ooh. Evoker is solid. So I can Wasteland their Caracas, revoke Jitte, go to their turn, on their turn, bounce Thalia Heretic Cathar, take 3, then on my next turn, play second Caracas, and equip my Batterskull to my Revoker. Yeah, we're not dead yet, folks. Sure. All right, buddy, what do you got over there? Critter's great. I agree. I would have just sat there with those 2 Jitte counters. Like, especially knowing that, like, they're going to Recruiter for a Flicker Wisp to get my Revoker off the table. Yep. Stoneford is rough. So at this point, I'm mostly playing towards my opponent making mistakes to let me win. So, like, I can't win to my opponent playing well. So I just have to play towards them playing badly. And they do have Thalia Heretic Cathar in their deck, so it's very possible. So I'm making this attack in, knowing full well that my opponent can Thalia, block. Never mind. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm not actually dead to the power that's on board. It's 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7 coming in, so I won't block any of this. We'll try to draw a land to equip Batterskull. And then we'll die to them doing really anything. Yep. We're dead. Play it out like I'm not, though. Again, we're grinding my opponent's clock down here. Alright, still really don't love this Palace Jailer. Like, I don't love this being in the deck, but I don't have another card to bring in for it. And I don't really want to leave a Thalia in the deck because it's so awkward with Caracas, and Magus is bad. So I guess I'll leave it this time. Game 2, we were on the draw, and we lost. We lost to Jitte. That is how this matchup goes sometimes. We definitely got closer to winning that one than we ever should have because of my opponent's deck composition. Like, we have cards like Pia and Kieran and Palace Jailer and Recruiter to their Thalia Heretic Cathars and Judges Familiars. So they're a little bit leaner, but we have more endgame fat. And the endgame fat is where you usually want to be in this matchup. Alright. One land, Ether Vial hand that is wastelandable, but has high upside. Like, I like, other than another land, I have all the right cards that I want for this matchup. Like, I have a removal spell for an early Mom or an early Stoneforge. I have a Stoneforge myself. I have a Recruiter to find other tools. I have Pia and Kieran as endgame inevitability. But if I keep this, I might just die to opposing Mana Denial. This is the sort of hand that I normally mulligan. But a lot of people in the chat have been suggesting that I be more aggressive with keeping the one land Aether Vial hands because they have a lot of upside. Like, if my opponent doesn't turn one Wasteland me, and I draw a land on turn 2, and I get to Stoneforge on turn 2 and get my Jitte, this hand is insane. So I'm actually going to keep this. So 23 of the 53 cards that are in my deck at this point are lands. So I'm very likely to hit. And we hit. Hand feels very insane now. I'll get a Jitte. My opponent can't really afford to spend this much time thinking. They're down to about 5 minutes left on the clock. And if we're both going to be playing an Aether Vial based game where we're going to be deploying a lot of cards and have a lot of interaction and can't F6, then my opponent just can't spend their turn sitting back like this and just waiting. So my opponent probably has either a Judge's Familiar or a Mother of Runes, since they're holding back on their Aether Vial like this and not just vialing something in. And if it's a Judge's Familiar, I just want to Path to Exile this Mom and then cast my Aether Vial. If it's a Mom, it's sort of awkward because I give them the opportunity to put another Mom in play, but that's going to happen no matter what. So I am fine with just casting the Path here. Sort of awkward that it accelerates my opponent, but that's sort of where I'm at right now. So our opponent kind of bluffed a Judge's Familiar there, which is a little weird. Alright, so you Recruiter. That's fine. What would you like to get with your Recruiter? Probably a Revoker. You will revoke Jitte. And that is an annoyance for me. Ooh, Leon and Relic Warder. Sure. This is aggressive. So they're going to Leon and Relic Warder my Aether Vial, leaving me with Jitte when I have a second Vial. This is not in the playbook of good plays. So I'm not going to just like cast the Jitte because I want to represent that I could have Batterskull. My opponent attacks with no fear of Batterskull. My opponent really needs to have like a Revoker or a Disenchant or something to deal with this Jitte here. Disenchant. And they should have waited to do that. They should have let me try to equip it first. My opponent is probably starting to freak out because of like how low on clock they are. If I were to take a guess. Magus is in my sideboard, right? Yeah, Magus is in my sideboard. So accordingly, I will just fetch a Plateau. And I'll port their port. So where's my Stoneforge? You bet. Again, my opponent is just trying to close out this game before they time out, so they are not playing optimally. So it's really easy to judge my opponent on bad plays here, but they are in turbo go fast mode right now. And now we'll stabilize the board. And we're going to get to Flicker Wisp this too, which is really gross. Oh, it got even grosser. That's how we make an army, ladies and gentlemen. And my opponent scoops it up. They can't beat that. Alright, so we're on the draw for that one and we win. So game 3, we win with P and K and a Flicker Wisp. So that, like, in that one turn, by casting P and K and the Flicker Wisp, we produced 7 power of flying, 9 power total on an otherwise empty board. So keeping that landlight hand ended up working out pretty well for us. All right, Chad, I need to take about 30 seconds to run to the bathroom here, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the deck list up for you. We are currently 2-1 in this league, doing pretty well, and I'll be back for 2 more rounds momentarily. Quick, Phil's gone. Post elves. Please don't. Don't summon them. I lose to them. Alright, so thank you all for joining me late this evening. I don't have work tomorrow, so I can stream a little bit later than I normally do with impunity. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Phil Gallagher. I run Thraben University, and I am a death and taxes enthusiast, to say the least. Here we go. Who are we playing against? We're playing against On Tilt 111, who has no legacy finishes. So we will keep a very, very good hand. We're on the draw. Against On Tilt 111. Gataxian Probe. It's like cheating. Now you know I don't have the Force of Will. If my opponent is on like Ant or something like that, I like this hand because it has Thalia. My opponent is on a Delver deck, I like this hand because I can fetch a basic and play a Vial, and then I have a stream of really annoying creatures. I more or less like this hand against most decks that would start off with Gataxian Probe. So as to not get stifled, if my opponent is indeed a Delver deck, I'm going to lead on Cavern of Souls. Nah, I think my opponent's playing a Delver deck. Force, Pitch Ponder. I also really think they have a Stifle. Do I think they have a Stifle enough that I'm willing to, like, not play Mom here? That's the real question. Like, my opponent very conspicuously has not tapped this Underground Sea all game yet. So I might get a weird sort of value by not fetching. But if I'm reading too much into this situation and my opponent just doesn't have a 1-drop and their hand is just full of things like Gurmag Anglers or something like that, then I do lose out on a ton of value by not doing this. If this is going to get one of my lands no matter what, I'd rather take the high upside play and fetch now. Like, it's possible that my opponent is just bluffing the stifle. Nope, they have it. Okay, that's fine. Like, it was going to get one of our lands no matter what. Like, if my opponent just plays another land here, then me holding back for a turn doesn't actually play around the stifle at all. So my opponent kept with their ponder. So they wanted at least one card from it. I really hope that my opponent doesn't have another stifle. They don't. Great. My opponent's not clocking me right now. So, like, even though I've lost 2 lands to their stuff, they don't actually have a clock in play. They're setting themselves up back on land drops as well. So I'm actually not in that bad of shape. Like, I'm going to get to curve Thalia into Stoneforge into maybe Thalia again if something gets answered. What if he wants to fill the yard for Delve? I think he can delve whatever he darn well pleases at this point. So kind of my plan this game is to Thalia again and just like keep making my opponent use up their resources, and then when they're running out of resources, I'll Stoneforge. Another Wasteland is rough, but again, if my opponent isn't clocking us, I have way more lands in my deck than they do. I'm more likely to draw out of this. So even if my opponent plays something like a Delver or a Deathrite or a Young Pyromancer, I have the Swords of Plowshares to answer it now. So I'm only scared of my opponent playing something like a True Name Nemesis. That's a card that I can't beat on the current board. Deathrite Shaman, you bet. My opponent's down to 1 card. What is it? You have a Delver for me? Aggressive. I technically should have used that opportunity to Swords to Plowshares the Deathrite before they could like Spell Pierce it or Daze it. That was just me clicking too quickly. Did not get punished for it. Alright. Miss on the land drop, but again, opponent is down to 1 card. Alright, so they get a Delver, and their Delver's probably going to flip. Oh, they get 2 Delvers. That's pretty insane. And they're both going to flip to that Brainstorm. So because of that, I'm actually going to Stoneforge rather than Thalia. And hope my opponent's top card isn't a removal spell. I'm going to try to get this Batterskull into play ASAP. If my opponent has something like Fatal Push or Lightning Bolt as the card that they're using to flip these Delvers, that's super bad for us. Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce is fine. So we'll take 6 here, go to 12, put in the Batterskull, take 6 more, go down to 6, and then start attacking with the Batterskull and just win this game. Again, since I know my opponent has Stifle in their deck, I'm just going to put this in now. Cancel that. Ugh. True Name Nemesis is one of the few cards I could have beaten this Batterskull. Now we should be on pretty much 0 outs here. Yep, I'll concede there. So I'm recording that one as a loss to True Name Nemesis. Like, I know the Delvers are what technically killed us, but we would have beaten the Delvers with the Batterskull. So our opponent had to answer the Batterskull, and True Name is one of the only things that could have done that there. That's super unfortunate. Alright. So, we bring in removal and some Crusaders. We take out the Revokers, which aren't great, the Jailers, which are risky, the P and K, which is slow. Last time I tried taking out a Magus, the Maguses, I think I like keeping the Magus. I was fine trying it for a game, but I don't know more generally that I like that plan. And I'll strip the Recruiters. This looks great. I'll keep this hand. It needs a colored source. It needs a colored source badly. But it is a strong hand that doesn't have a colored source. Like, we get Aether Vial to start off, we have 2 Mana Denial lands and a Jitte. Yeah, there's considerably more True Name Nemesis and Grixis Delver these days. In the main deck as well, which is really frustrating. Fifthing Needle my Aether Vial. Seems like a great play when I kept a hand that was weak to that. But I'll get to wasteland them back. I might not wasteland them if I draw a white source, though. I'll probably just Thalia. No, I'm fine wasting them. I play with the original Wastelands. I don't like the new one. Alright, that's not great. Missing land drops against Delver. That's bad. Opponent didn't shuffle with the Ponder. Also bad. Ugh. So if my opponent didn't have the Pithing Needle, this Vial would have absolutely taken over this game. So I don't regret keeping the hand, even though it's not working out. I agree. It does kind of look like my opponent is playing Stifle. I'm very happy that I drew a basic for that reason. So I know my opponent has Lightning Bolt. Kind of want to rest in peace this turn, followed by Path to Exile the Delver on the following turn. My opponent has Stifle and stifles this Rest in Peace trigger. Great. That's a Stifle that's not going to be pointed at one of my fetch lands. No, I won't pay for days. Alright, so we know two of my opponent's 5 cards, at least in all likelihood. They probably have a Volcanic Island, and they probably have the Lightning Bolt still. So again, we're just hoping to essentially draw lands for the rest of the game. We have plenty of gas. Cabal Therapy. Alright, what do you know about? You probed this game? You haven't probed this game. Alright, you hit a Stone Punch. That's fine. Depending on what the rest of my opponent's hand is like, it might not be unreasonable to sacrifice their death right to get both of these Thalios or something like that. So I'll path the Delver. Opponent forces pitching Ponder. That's annoying. I'll fetch and probably get stifled. Didn't get stifled. I'm gonna go ahead and get a Plateau. If I draw a Magus, I'd like to be able to cast it. This Thalia is going to eat it to a Lightning Bolt immediately. I'll take 3 more from the Delver, going to 10. Really need to draw a removal spell for the Delver. Yep. Okay. Sword Splashers is a good draw. So I can Swords the Gurmag, play Thalia, and then die in 2 turns. That's not great. But options are limited. Alternatively, I can Swords the Delver, play Mom, take 5 from Gurmag, go to 5, and then use Mom to wall Gurmag. It might be better. So either way, I probably need to draw another removal spell. And either way, I'm probably dead to my opponent having a piece of spot removal. So if I Swords the Delver, I take 5, for sure. I go to 5. My opponent Deathrite drains me. And then the Deathrite kills me in 2 more turns. But if I Swords the Gurmag Angler, I'm still dead in 2 turns. So I guess it is better to Swords the Delver, as awkward as that is. And we're just dead to my opponent having anything. This treats the Mom as a pseudo removal spell for Gurmag Angler a turn down the line. If I draw a land, I can also cast Jitte and equip it on Mom, and that maybe helps to get me out of this spot. Yep, I take 5. Sure, you drain me. I flicker without the vial. While it's out, I put in Thalia. Yes. Thalia goes in. This should now probably name the Umezawa's Jitte that's in my hand rather than the Ether Vial. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and try to trade here, and then hope that I rip a removal spell for Deathrite Shaman. Rin Wingmare does not do it under any circumstances. My opponent just drains me twice. And I'm dead. Alright. We lost that one to a Pithing Needle. Alright, let's see if we can break even on this one. Have not had a great day of Magic. Alright, we are playing against Andre Hicks. No results for this player, so we will just keep a reasonable hand. This qualifies as a reasonable hand. It's a little bit slow, but this is the sort of hand where you vial and then port and then actually start playing. Hello, hello, random user. Welcome. I am currently playing Red, White, Death, and Taxes. We're on round 5 of this league. We're currently 2-2. My name is Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU University. Alright. Opponent plays Ponder. Could be playing against Delver again. Could be playing against Sneak and Show. Could be playing against Blue-Red Delver instead of Grixis Delver. Who knows? I do know that I'd like to draw another land, though. That's great. Land. Ether Vial. And it's stuck. Good news for the home team. Thoughts on Seth Manfield's slow play against you? Like, from way back on that video I have posted on my website? Or have I played against him again recently? So I haven't rewatched that match in ages. At the time, I don't remember it being, like, particularly slow. Like, it was kind of a cumbersome match. So I don't think my opponent was playing at an unreasonable pace. But, like, without looking at the video again, I don't remember. So he was playing blue, white, red Stoneblade, if memory serves. And there was a lot going on. Like, there's equipment on both sides. I want to say, like, he had a Grim Lavamancer somewhere in there. Like, there was a ton going on. So for my opponent to be playing a little bit slowly on that board is 100% reasonable. Oh, I remember the part where I got his true name. You don't forget that sort of thing. Did he get a 1-0 win? I have a lot of different things that I can do this turn. I kind of want to make the Wingmare uncounterable so that my opponent can't remove it. And if they have a removal spell, they use it on the Wingmare. And then on my following turn, I play a Recruiter through a Daze and have, like, start to have Flicker Wisp backup. But putting a Cavern on Pegasus isn't the best. I'd rather put that on Elemental or Human. I can also just cast Recruiter, get a Stoneforge, use Vial, put in the Stoneforge, get a piece of equipment, and threaten to take the game over that way, which is probably fine. You like Recruiter for Thalia over Recruiter for Stoneforge? That's fair. I can see that. I might actually do that. Yeah, actually, I think I do like the Thalia. The greedy play would be Magus. But like if I get to Thalia this turn, Wingmare the following turn, that's pretty gross. Like even operating under the assumption that both of those Delvers flip, because my opponent got the Brainstorm previously, it's still real scary for my opponent to have to play 3 mana for any of their spells, and I have 2 Flicker Wisps. Oh. So my opponent, I think, should have known that card off of their Brainstorm. I've been kind of keeping an eye on the chat rather than some of their cards, but... Alright, my opponent now has a Daze in hand. That's very good to know about. Yeah, but, like, this is similar to just playing a Wingmare, but what this allows me to do is stack it on the next turn. Alright, fork bolt is solid. Stoneforge is a great draw. I'm going to kind of sandbag the Stoneforge for a little while and let my opponent exhaust their resources. So play this Wingmare. It can't get dazed. And then I'm going to have Flicker Wisp to flip back one of these Delvers and ambush the other one mid-combat. Opponent flips to Gataxian Probe. Okay. I was just planning on using this to flip a Delver back, but getting to rescue a Wingmare is even better. And I'll 100% trade one of these here. Yeah, it feels good. Like, my opponent gets to know about the next Flicker Wisp, so there's going to be no surprise there. So for now, I'll say always no to this. Oh. That's neat. So I can just take their Delver off the board and become the aggressor, but I kind of like just getting this Stoneforge into play and like getting the equipment that threatens to take over the game. Alternatively, if I just swords this Delver, I can port them and Flicker Wisp out a land and just try to keep them off of mana completely. But I think I can just take over this game with equipment at this point. So I think I'm going to equip and port. Or that is, play the Stoneforge Mystic and get equipment. And any piece of equipment will probably do it here. I'm going to take Batterskull. And I'm going to get value out of this now while it's guaranteed. So I'll have Batterskull and Jitte as pieces of equipment in hand. My opponent will have a devil of a time trying to race this. through the mana denial that is Wingmare. Because if they answer the Stoneforge, I still have 5 powers of flyer in play. And these pieces of equipment that they have to answer too. So if I didn't have 2 flyers in play, I would probably agree with you. But since I have 2 different flyers, I'm not too worried about that at all. And I'm not going to trade for the Delver here, I don't think. Or maybe I do. If I trade for the Delver, then I Stoneforge in Jitte, put Jitte on Wingmare, use a counter, get rid of Young Pyromancer, then this game's over. Sure, I'll trade. I don't think it matters whether or not I trade. Like, we're done here. It's even better. And the opponent scoops it up. Alright, so we're playing against Grixis Delver. We're on the draw, and we win against Andre Hicks. We really won with Vile that game. We won with a Vile curve that involved Recruiter. We got a ton of value off our flyers off of Vile. Alright, boarding against Grixis Delver. So again, Paths in, Rest in Peace in, Crusader in, Recruiter out, Revoker out, 4 drops out. Yeah, it's another one of these awkward Aether Vial hands where I really hope my opponent doesn't have Pithing Needle. It's super awkward. But assuming this Vial doesn't go anywhere, this hand is great. If we draw a White Source, this hand is great. If we draw a 2-drop like Stoneforge Mystic or Thalia, this hand is fine. Hand is gas. Hello, welcome to the stream. So I'm usually all about removing Deathrite Shaman immediately when it hits play, but since I have this Rest in Peace that kind of deals with it from here on out, starting the next turn, I'm going to lead with Aether Vial instead. So our opponent gets 1 turn of Deathrite Acceleration, and then we Rest in Peace them. Delver, sure. Alright, you get a mana. What would you like to do with your mana? Brainstorm so the Delver flips? Spell Pierce. No. Delver did not flip. It's great for us. Yeah, I don't think Spell Pierce should be in post board. Alright, Moon Man, go, go, go. My opponent has plenty of outs to this because they have mana up right now. But I'm playing Magus of the Moon, and I'm not playing it to not jam. So, like, they can just Lightning Bolt it, and if they do, that's fine. "100% okay trading a Braid for Magus." Alright, opponent has a Brainstorm now. Sure. I'm actually going to Swords to Plowshares the Deathrite Shaman rather than the Delver, because if I get this off the table, then my Wasteland means something again. And I can trade with the Delver in combat, whereas I can't trade with the Deathrite Shaman, because my opponent's not going to attack with it. Alright, now do I want to take them off of the Sea or the Bulk? I think the Sea. I don't want them to deploy another Deathrite Shaman. Or a Gurmag Angler. That would also be bad. Like, they forced the Rest in Peace earlier this game. And that was probably just because of the Deathrite, but if it was because of a Deathrite and an Angler, that would be scary. Alright, there's a Fork Bolt. It's fine. I laugh a little inside when Grixis Delver draws the Trop. Me too. Me too. We'll unflip their Delver. So I like this line better than like playing the port, flickering the port, and porting them. I just want to like stabilize my life total as much as possible. My top decks are better than their top decks at this point. They can use the Brainstorm to flip the Delver, but if they do so, they're getting minimal value off the Brainstorm. Oh, wow. No flip off the Delver. They have a handful of creatures and lands. Here's to hoping this Delver doesn't flip. All right, they brainstorm again. They get another card deeper. Although I'm very curious, like, how they didn't flip this Delver if they had a brainstorm in their hand. Like, that means they should have been able to flip it. Alright, Bolt the Flicker Wisp. Alright, they have a Daze. So we get a couple of turns to draw out from this Delver. I think the Swords on the Deathrite was necessary. I'll talk about it more in a second. I'll see if I'm dead to my opponent playing something else. Alright, we died. So, kind of what I'm worried about for my opponent is, like, cantrip into something that matters, and keeping the Deathrite off the table keeps them from, like, turning a land into Deathrite Drain Machine. And it also keeps them from, like, deploying multiple spells in a turn, which is something that I very, very much care about. Alright. So we were on the draw and we lost. So why did we lose? I don't know. We probably really lost to that Spell Pierce, in all honesty. Like, it's not a card that I think my opponent should have post board. But it happened to be very, very good. Like, the Spell Pierce ate my Rest in Peace, and then I had to use removal spells on the Deathrites instead of just ignoring them. That probably was what did it. We'll be on the play for this one. If my opponent has a Braid and Forked Bolt as well, this Magus of the Moon might not necessarily lock them out of the game all of the time. So maybe I should trim one and instead play the Palace Jailer on the draw, or excuse me, on the play. My opponent showed me a True Name yet. Did I see True Name in game one? Did not see True Name in game one. I like Magus well enough. This hand is great. It has 2 removal spells and an Ether Vial, and a great card to put in off of Ether Vial in a couple of turns. You know, can't ask for too much more. So I have a counterplay to just about anything that my opponent can do. Alright, my opponent forces the Vial. That's fine. Alright, we have a Delver. So this is sort of an interesting turn, where if my opponent has a Daze, let's just take away the opportunity of playing Daze. I'll waste you first. And now I'll swords you. And you have another... Nope, doesn't have a second force. We're really choking my opponent's resources very, very hard here. If they don't have another land here, they are out of this game, because I'll get to follow up with Wingmare. Alright, they do have a land, so they're still playing Magic. But they're not in great shape. Bolt Thalia. You bet. Alright, my opponent's down to 3 cards. I'm choking their mana. I have a removal spell still. I can start porting them. Position's fine. Hope the opponent likes doing nothing. Yeah, that's about where we're at, yep. Sure. Yeah, an opponent is operating on very few resources right now. Oh man, drawing another Flicker Wisp means I get to just repeat my line from the previous turn. I'm A-okay with that. Yeah, like the opponent's hand wasn't bad, but they really needed to draw like a creature at some point to be clocking me while they're doing all of this. Dismember, sure. Opponent not drawing the best here. This game going longer favors us quite a bit. Alright, well, here we go. Let's try this. How do you like this, opponent? You've used so many removal spells already. Do you still have more? My guess is you don't like this. Alright, we have a Magus. They have a bunch of mountains. I have a Path to Exile for a Young Pyromancer if they play one. Yeah, sure, you have a Young Pyromancer. You have like a Taxing Probe or something for me? No, you don't. Don't think my opponent's gonna have a basic to find. Call it a hunch. Yeah, they didn't. This is why I keep Magus in for this matchup. It's moments like this. You bet. You can Ancient Grudge that vial all you want, bud. I don't think you should have done that. Yeah, so we know my opponent has a Forked Bolt. So, like, they can find their Forked Bolt. They can find the 2 Lightning Bolts that are still in their deck. They might have one more Abrade. They have some Young Pyromancers that can buy time. So they're not dead. They're in bad shape. Like, they can't cantrip for those things, which is the problem. So they just have to naturally draw them. Oh, that's great. Our opponent is under a lot of pressure, yes, but they could still, like, Lightning Bolt Magus, play True Name, and get out of this. But my opponent says GG. They're scooping it up. Alright, so we win that one. Game 3, win with Magus. Alright, so we ended up with 3-2 that league, playing against Checkpile, Grixis Delver, D&T, Grixis Delver, and Grixis Delver again. Yay, Magus free wins. Magus of the free wins. I agree. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I have another snow day tomorrow, so I will do another afternoon league. It is my plan to start streaming at about 1 p.m. Eastern time. You know, plus or minus a little while, depending on how late I sleep in and when lunch happens. But assuming I'm awake and, you know, nothing weird happens, I will start streaming at 1 o'clock. Do any of you have any questions about sort of this red-white deck list or the deck here before I sign off for the evening? Alright, seems like that's a no. So I'm going to go ahead and host somebody else that I hosted earlier when I stopped streaming, because they're still streaming. So I'll send you guys to a different Legacy chat. Thank you very much. I see Spark Mage didn't make it back in. No, we're trying another recruiter over the Spark Mage. I've been unimpressed by Spark Mage. It seems so good on paper, but so poor in practice. So thank you all so so much for joining me tonight. If you haven't already and you're interested in this sort of content, feel free to follow me. And I will catch you all later. And I'm going to go ahead and host someone else now. And I will catch you all.